Talk with your host, Reggie B. Come on, let's all join in. Free your voice, it's your choice, alright here. Oh, simply stray talk.
It is so hot today. I hope it's not crowded with people buying more than they need.
I know, right? Oh yeah, let me put my mask on. Did you bring yours?
Duh, it's right here on my neck.
Oh yeah, see you got that bougie mask. Did you go to Wakanda and have Shuri make you a mask from the Black Panther suit?
Well, at least my mask can actually protect me. It's light and blends in with my attire. Unlike that piece of ripped up t-shirt on your face. I am so funny. Oh yeah, grab a buggy.
Anyway, you never let me have my little jokes.
You're right, because your little jokes barely get a smirk.
Whatever. I must admit, you're doing a great thing by helping Mary with food for her kid's birthday party.
Well, us moms have to stick together. Her fiance can't be here, so I don't mind helping. But when he gets back in town, I think things will be better for her.
Yeah, well, us dads feel the same way, except we include moms.
Don't turn this into a gender issue. I will leave you walking on a hot pavement.
Come on, let's go in here and get this stuff. Besides, it will be another 3 years before he gets here, and I wonder if she don't really mind waiting that long.
3 years? How do you know he'll be going that long? People can still travel during this pandemic.
What does the virus have to do with anything? The man in jail. He been in jail for, 4 years now?
What? He's in jail?
Woman, lower your voice.
Wait. Stop playing. How do you know he's in jail?
The man been in jail. Eric, who works at the diner, told Sherry, who he follows on Instagram, who told Craig at the resource center, who then told Tina, who dances at Club Lit and Sexy, and who also works for the post office, told me because she delivers the mail with his letters.
First, there is so much wrong in so many ways with what you just said. But she never said anything to me about him being in jail. She's still cool with me. I hope it works out for her because she really is a good person. Unfortunately, she's just fallen on some tough times.
I think she might be embarrassed. You have a man, and Angelique has a man. So her 2 friends are in healthy relationships. Not to mention, y'all got me as a friend, and you can't get no better than me.
Yeah, that's a conversation that needs to take place real soon.
What?
Never mind.
So why do you think she started dating somebody in prison?
I'm curious as to how they met.
Well, Tina said Carol from the bank told her...
Boy, shut up with all this he said, she said mess. If you know, just say it. Damn!
All right. She met him on an online prisoner dating site.
Why didn't you just say that then?
I was trying.
Okay, let me bring it down. All right. I think we underestimate how lonely or empty a person may feel when it comes to being loved and feeling needed by someone.
True. Most of the time, people are like, they'll be okay or you'll be okay.
Let's look at it this way. When a person gives themselves to someone with the hope of finding love and they continue to find heartache, eventually they start looking in other places. Sometimes those places are not the best choices, but it's the only option they see for themselves.
Wow. Now that explains how a person can get attached to anyone who showed the slightest signs of interest.
Exactly. There are a lot of people who date people in prison or have prison pen pals. It's not a bad thing, but you still have to be careful. People run game all the time, and being in jail or walking free doesn't change that.
It kind of makes me wonder how that works and the adjustments that your person would have to make.
I'm sure it has its challenges as well. The best thing you can do is try to be there for people who are lonely and motivate them.
Now see, that's true. Everybody should think that way.
Take you, for instance. Angelique and I are always motivating you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Well, hold on now. Why are you calling me lonely?
Do you have a girlfriend? As a matter of fact, do you have friends with benefits? Are you a side dude? Ooh, do you have a booty call chick?
Okay, first, mean friend. I ain't trifling like that. Second, I got plenty of women I can call right now.
Call somebody and just say hello. Not Angelique. I know her voice. Let me see your phone.
You know what? You know what? That's the problem with the black community. We don't know how to stay focused. We are here to get food for Mary's kid's birthday. I will not be deterred from doing a good deed.
You're right. I guess I did lose focus. I guess it's just so easy to do when you have someone to love. But I respect you for being a lonely, focused man. Grab that pineapple. The one on the shelf by itself. Welcome to another episode of the Simply Straight Talk Show with your host, Reggie Maddox. And today, we got some real talk on this thing called life just for you. Y'all know what we about to do. Let's start the show.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Simply Straight Talk Show. This is your host, Reggie Maddox. Today, we're going to talk about dating somebody in prison. Because we hear about this a lot. You know, there's TV shows about it. But the main thing is, this is a reality for some people. You know, some people really do seek a person that is incarcerated in order to develop a relationship with. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it actually leads to marriage. Now, I want to say this right off the jump because I want you to understand something. This is not to discourage anybody, or this is not to make anything negative or say anything that's saying that, you know, people who are incarcerated are incapable of love. And this is not to, you know, degrade a person's choice or option that if they do seek to find somebody in love, who's incarcerated to fall in love with. But what I want to do today is talk to you about when this happens. You know, what are some of the things you should consider? What are some tips that you may need for this? And I also want to explore why this is such an option for some people. Why is it that a person feels like this is where they need to go to find love? Now, I'm not saying that people who are incarcerated don't need love, but let's kind of look into this before we start getting into all the tips and everything. Because you have to understand and you have to be realistic about this, because prison is not the typical place a person thinks of when it comes to falling in love or meeting that special person. But many men and women find themselves dating someone who is in prison. Now, we always hear the woman's side of the story, which I'm not knocking that. But there is a male side to this story as well, because there are many men who really do seek out women in prison to develop relationships with. Now, however you feel about it personally, I think before you judge a person, you sort of need to understand, you know, what may have happened in that person's life. What is that person's current mindset? So let's kind of look at all of these things, because there's a lot of things to consider, you know, before you decide to commit to dating someone who is in prison. So before we get into the tips for dating someone in prison, I want to spend a little time talking about how to determine if this is the right decision for you, because this is not for everybody. Okay, so you need to understand that, because some people think you're going to meet somebody, they're going to be a changed person, and they're going to get out and you're going to have this good life, and they're going to be so grateful to you that, you know, she's just going to love you to the end, and she's going to be that perfect woman because you was there when everything came to peace, and now you're happy. You got this wonderful marriage. And unfortunately, that's not always how the story ends. It doesn't always end like that, because no young man or woman grows up ever dreaming about their prince or princess, you know, being locked up. You know, we imagine a person that we can go out with, we can share drinks with, watch a movie with, go on vacations with, talk on the phone with, you know, enjoy romantic outings, you know, family gatherings. Unfortunately, this is not an easy or even an option when you're with someone in prison. Now, these things can happen down the line once that person is released, but can you maintain for 3 or 5 years or 10 years until that person completes their sentence, so you can possibly have these things that I just mentioned? Now, I know many men and women who have transformed their lives and are, they're amazing people, and, they're still in prison, but they've transformed their life. They realize that, I made a mistake. I did something that I shouldn't have done. I was with the wrong crowd. I was trying to get, I wasn't patient in trying to build a life. I was looking for that fast life, that thug life, that hustle. And it ended up placing me in the position that I am now. And you got some people that realize that, and when they get out, they're going to be a better person, and they're not going to want to go back because they realize that that was a part of my life that I made a mistake. It was my past. Now, I also know that there are many people who are in prison who have not transformed their lives. And, these people are not looking to get out and, be better. They're thinking that they're going to go back to the old group they used to hang out with. They're going to do the same things they used to do because they simply have got in their minds that this is all I'm good at. This is all I can do. So they haven't been transformed through the experience of being arrested, being incarcerated. They're not going to come out that new person. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes they may prey on men and women. So they have someone on the outside, just to provide money, material things, or just a connection to the outside world, especially if everybody else has cut them off. So we have to understand that. We got to be realistic about this. You know what I'm saying? Because after all, everybody is human and everybody responds to things differently. So let's get into this conversation by discussing 3 questions to start off with. Okay. Why have you considered prison as an option for love? Are you looking for a pen pal? Are you seeking a relationship? So what made you think to yourself, like, in order for me to find love, that I need to look to someone who's in prison? Now, one reason a person may look to meeting somebody in prison could have been that they knew that person before. They was dating that person before they went to jail. So they just kind of maintained that relationship. In another situation, it could be that a person is just simply lacking confidence and ability to meet someone outside of the prison due to failed relationships. I personally believe that once a person, kind of comes to the conclusion in their mind that as hard as I'm working to meet somebody, as hard as I'm working to be in a relationship, I keep getting my heart broke. I just can't seem to find the right person. I can't seem to meet the person that's going to really, build a life with me. They start looking at other options. They start looking at other choices. It could be, I'm no longer interested in men. I'm now going to start looking at women, or it could be a man saying, I'm no longer interested in men. I'm going to start looking at other men. When people feel they need love, they will channel their mind, open themselves up to other options. And it's the same thing. Some people feel like I cannot meet somebody in the real world. So maybe if I go through the means of meeting somebody that's incarcerated, that they'll want to take time to get to know me, and then they'll fall in love with me because they've gotten to know me. So, that's a possibility now. Another reason is somebody might consider dating somebody in this prison is, when you're dating someone in prison, it may allow that person to feel like they have more control. And in a sense, you do, because the phone calls are limited to 10, 15 minutes. You can take the phone calls or not. You basically set the tone for the communications. You can say, no, I don't want to do phone calls yet. We're going to do emails. And that person has no option if they want to talk to you. Either we can email, or we can do written letters, or we can do phone calls. So you have more control over it. And deep down, this person is going to say what you want based on their circumstances. But still, you feel like you have more control over the situation. Next is hearing the right things and expressing yourself with judgment. Because handwritten letters are so personal, but rarely done. And some people feel that they can be open to someone in prison regarding their faults and past without judgment, because they feel like, listen, this person has either experienced something I have experienced, or they've experienced worse, so they're not going to judge me. Whereas another person who hasn't been incarcerated or just a regular friend, you may feel like they're going to go back and say something. They're going to judge me. Whereas if you tell someone who's incarcerated, who are they going to tell except for the person in jail with them that probably you don't know and nobody else know? So you feel more comforting opening up about your situation to somebody that's incarcerated. And like I said, when somebody's in a situation to where they're incarcerated, you're more likely to hear the things you want to hear. You're going to get that feeling of feeling needed. And I think some people actually get that feeling. They feel needed because now you got a person who does need you. You got a person who actually communicates and listens because they want to keep that communication with the outside world. So those are some reasons that a person might consider prison as an option for love. Next, second question. What does it take to date someone in prison? And I think a lot of people may not fully understand this because it is not as easy as dating somebody in the outside world. Yes, you may have more control. Yes, the visitation's in the limit. You don't have to worry about spending time. But there are other things that you got to consider when you're dating somebody that's in prison. And first, you're going to need patience. Patience, because the person may not get out when you think they're going to get out. Patience about the phone calls, the letters, because every letter you send has to be open and read. Everything they send out has to be open and read. You need boundaries, because if you decide to go ahead and date someone who was in prison, it's really important to set some boundaries and stick to them. Remember that prison culture is completely different than the outside world. So you're going to have to set boundaries as far as how much you're going to say, and I tell people, if you're going to date somebody in prison, I highly recommend that you use a PO box. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But how much information are you going to divulge? These are things that you need to think about. You got to set boundaries of what you're going to do. Six, prison rules knowledge. And this is a big one because you need to understand how the mail and communication works in prison. You need to understand the lockdown and the process for things like appeals, paroles, the crime they committed, the state in which they committed the crime. The reason for understanding the state is that some places require a person to come back to that state once they're released. If you're in a federal prison and you committed a crime in North Carolina, North Carolina may require you to come back and do parole there in North Carolina. But you can request permission to do it in another state. But then again, you have to be accepted. So if that person committed a crime in North Carolina, but you say live in Las Vegas, and you want them to come to Las Vegas to live with you, well, now you have a whole nother issue of trying to get permission from that person from North Carolina to come there, and also for Las Vegas to accept them coming there. So there are things you need to understand about how the prison system works, the crimes they committed, what's going to happen when they get out. What happens when they can't make phone calls because the prison is on lockdown. You have to understand things like this. You need to know your intentions, or, be clear about what your intentions are. Are you, just looking for a pen pal, somebody to write, talk, communicate with? Are you looking for somebody that you want to develop a relationship with? What happens if that person does start expressing feelings or developing a relationship? Do you go with it or do you pull back? Or what if you start developing feelings? Do you actually go with it? Same thing. Do you pull back? So you need to have an understanding. And also, money. Money is something we're going to talk about a little later, but the expectation is something that you need to take in consideration when you're dating someone, because are you going to be financially putting money on their books? Are you going to be sending them things? You have to consider things like this when you're dating someone in prison. And these are things that a lot of people don't seem to really get. And third, and really quickly, when we talk about dating someone that's in prison, how are you going to introduce this person to your family? How do you really feel about it? You have to ask yourself, am I going to be able to reveal the truth about this person, or am I going to be living a lie? Are we not going to tell the truth? Are we going to avoid the question and play around with it? You have to think about these things when you're dating somebody that's in prison. Now, I wanted to kind of give you some highlights of some of the things before we go into the second part of the show and we really start diving into this, because you have to keep these things in mind, because you have to understand, there are reasons people do things, and you need to understand your reason. You got to understand your obligation, and you have to understand how much of a commitment are you willing to make. And we're going to get more into this, so y'all stay with us. We'll be right back with more of the Simply Straight Talk Show.
We'll be back with your host, Reggie, on Simply Straight Talk.
Hey, we all know that Atlanta, Georgia is a big city, and sometimes you might need just a little bit of help. But you know what? That's why we have Legs Concierge Services. Are you looking for someone to help you with errands, event planning, dog walking, organizing, shopping, or maybe you're in need of a personal assistant? Then you need to contact Legs Concierge Services, operating in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information on these and additional services, contact rarmstrong105@gmail.com. That's rarmstrong105@gmail.com. Remember, time is precious, so let Legs Concierge Services help you enjoy it so much better.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the second part of the show, and we're talking about love behind bars and prison pen pals, dating someone in prison. Now, right off the top, let's talk about scams, because everybody hears about this. And yes, scams can even take place in prison, and you will have no way to really verify it because you don't have that access. For example, some prisoners would join dating websites and they would have multiple people writing them. And, this person may be telling each of them the same thing, and both of you will be sending them money. Ultimately, they want to get as many people as possible to send them money. Now, one of my people that I follow on YouTube, this is a discussion we're talking about, and she actually was in prison, and she was actually telling me that there are some women who average what we make a year, $30,000 to $40,000, just on people sending them money. And in some cases, they would actually have other women write some of the letters so they can keep up with it. And it's basically like a little business. And she actually believes that men are more prone to send money than women. So there are scams going on. You got to think about that when you are, talking about somebody in prison. Let's look at both sides of this thing. From their perspective, it's like, listen, I don't have anything. In jail, the average prisoner probably makes, maybe depending on the job they do, like maybe 12 cents a day. That's it. They don't make a lot of money. They're doing laundry. In some cases, they may make military clothes. They may have factories where they make stuff, but they make no money. They literally make pennies a day for the work that they do. So the thing you got to remember is that they may feel like in order for me to get ahead or to be able to get stuff from the commissary or to get money on my book so I can buy some of the things I need, like soap, boots, stuff like that, shampoo, they feel like if I can get as many pen pals or people writing me as I can, I tell them whatever they want to hear and I get money, I'm on easy street, and they may not have to work at all because they're being funded by their pen pals. Another scam would be to get one, put it like this. They will talk to one person, they'll talk to multiple people, and then whoever they can get to pick them up when they get released from jail, basically they're going to use them as a means of temporary provisions until they can get to where they want to get. You know what I'm saying? They will say whatever they want to say, whatever they don't say to you, tell you whatever you want to hear, make you think that this is going to be a relationship. And when you're with them, after they get out of jail, they're trying to really get a hold of some woman or some guy that they knew before that they're trying to hook up with. And you're going to be the means for them to do that. So there's a lot of things you do have to consider. Like, I'm not saying this to scare you off. You got to be realistic. Just like you got men and women who run game in the real world, you got men and women still running game in the prison system. So it doesn't change. Don't think because they're in jail that the idea of running game on somebody does not exist. But let's talk about some tips that can possibly help you kind of be mindful in this situation. Is first, you got to listen and pay attention to what they are saying, what they are talking about. And it's going to be important that you really do want to find out, what they want to do when they get out, because it's very easy to get caught up in words of affection and comfort. When you don't have nobody telling you they miss you, or just simply doing the small thing like listening to you, and you got somebody who you feel like they're listening to you and they're attentive to you, then you kind of get swooned in. So you got to really pay attention to find out and read between the lines of what their real intentions are. Because when they get out, are they looking to party? Are they looking to get drunk? Do they talk about sex all the time? Are they talking about getting together with their friends? Because you may not be the end picture. You just may be a temporary solution to help them pass the time. Second, my advice to you would be write a lot of letters to get to know them. If they don't write back, then don't continue. Don't worry about it. Don't even think about pursuing any type of relationship, pen pal or whatever. But if they write back and within the first, first 6 or 7 letters, they're talking about marriage and love and family and being together, that should be a big red flag. You never met this person. You've only been writing letters and they're already talking about marriage and family. That's a big red flag. That is a big red flag. That's something that you probably just need to cut off from right there, because like I said, that's a red flag. Next, don't send them any money or purchase any food or accept collect calls. Now, federal prisons, the BOP, they use a system called core links. Now, with them, the prisoner has to pay for the phone calls. Now, some prison systems use JPay, in which, you're going to get a collect call. So you got to be kind of mindful about that, because those calls will run up. Now with core links, they only get like maybe 10 to 15 minutes to talk on the phone. But, don't start sending money. Don't start buying them stuff, because once you do that, you're going to get caught up in this cycle to where you're going to be pulling money from your own household, and they're going to be sitting there laying back, relaxing, even though they're in jail, but you're paying for everything. So start off with letter writing. Start off with letter writing for the first 7 to 8 months, because this gives you time to review the letters and make sure they're consistent in what they're saying. If you do phone call, you're trying to remember, unless you're going to take notes during the phone call. But start off with letters, because it makes sure they're consistent in what they're saying. And you can always go back and reread the letters and verify things. So you got to be mindful of that. And this should be common sense, but people do it. Do not take your children to prison visits to somebody that you just been talking through letters, because this gives them the impression of a family, that, you're trying to connect with them through a family. Now, you might have a prisoner that's, sincere about that, but some people will try to use that against you. They'll start talking like, I'll be a good father. Oh, I'll be a good mom. They'll try to work you through your kids. So be careful about that, and spend a lot of time talking about what are your goals? What are your dreams? Find out what their dreams are, and determine if it's something that you can achieve together, if you continue this into a relationship. Okay. Next, look out for guilt stories. Okay. Of how they're being treated. They don't get to eat. There's no good food. You're going to hear stuff about, the beds, my shoes, or the clothes. I don't have nothing to do. I can never watch TV. They always change it. They're always watching what they want to watch. If I can just get an MP3 player, they cost $57. I don't have $57. It's going to be all these little stories to keep telling you of things that they want you to do. They're kind of hinting and kind of pushing towards you. So you'll be like, well, why don't I send you $57? Or why don't I send you some money for this or buy this? It's always going to be something. So watch out for stories like that. That's going to try to guilt you into actually just sending money. Okay. And Next, remember this. You're going to face some challenges when they get out. This is something you got to think about, because on prison dating sites, they're supposed to tell you what the person was incarcerated for and the earliest release date. You can Google their names to get more information, which I do advise. And keep in mind, when they get out, depending on what their charge is, it may be difficult for them to get a job, which means they're going to be heavily reliant on you for a phone, for transportation, to learn their way around, food, clothing, all of that type stuff. So it could be 6 months to a year where you're supporting this person, even longer if that person is not actively trying to help themselves so they can help you in the relationship that they said they wanted with you. And you gotta remember something. You know, people want to feel love. And I'm not saying that all prisoners are bad, male or female, but this is something that you have to be mindful of, because people, when they're in a situation to where they feel like they're struggling, or they feel like they're at a point in their life to where there's no way out, you know, they're going to do or say whatever they want to say that they feel you want to hear. And you have to be mindful that you don't fall into that lonely trap, because it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm not saying that it's easy for them. And I know it's not going to be easy for you, because you could be writing this person and you're reading these letters and you're getting these phone calls and you're feeling like, wow, this is how it should be. Because communication is so important, and communication can really make the difference in a relationship. And when you're dating somebody in prison, you have these letters coming, which are very personable. You know, that's one thing about handwritten letters. They're so personal that it really does kind of get you in, because you're reading something that somebody actually sat down and took the time to write to you, allegedly. So, but the thing about it is, you know, you can't go into this situation of dating somebody in prison or a pen pal and thinking that you're going to meet this person whose life has totally changed. Now, it goes the same thing for those that are in prison. You could be dating someone too who could be writing multiple people in prison, and they could be doing it just to be doing it and have no intentions. You know, there are some people who have a fetish about that. Like they had this thing about men or women that's in jail. They want that person that's been in jail. So they're fascinated by it. So you got to remember things like that. And you also have to consider the fact too that there are situations to where some of these people are just looking for sex. That's it. When they're writing you a letter, it quickly turns into sex. They start talking about oral sex. They start talking about what they want to do, you know, what they'll do to you when they get out. You know, they want pictures of you. You know, you can't send nude pics, but they want you to get as close as you can to sending pictures that show your curves, or for a man that shows your bulge, or, you know what I'm saying? They want to see as much of you as possible for their fantasies or whatever they're going to do at night. You know what people do at night when they get in bed, you know what I'm saying? But you also have to consider the fact too that some of these people, you know, they're incarcerated with men, women with women. Some of them may adapt a bisexual lifestyle for the time, or, you know, and the same thing for men. So you have to consider that coming out, you know, that they may be thinking to themselves, I like the best of both worlds. When I get out, I want the best of both. And some people, when they get out, they simply want to party. They want to get drunk. They want to have as much sex as possible. So you got to think about all of these things when you're dating somebody that's in prison. And you got to be cautious on both sides. But you know what? We're going to take a little break right now. And when we right back, I'll come back with the final thoughts of today's show.
Don't even think about it. We got more straight talk just for you.
Hey, this your man Reggie here. Are you looking for some fresh new music? Are you looking for an artist that's got that positive vibe and that positive flow, that knows how to flow lyrically? Then man, you need to check out Tone G Music with songs like Buzzin', Good Deeds, and Pick Up the Phone. Now these songs are available on Apple Music and other digital platforms. Tone G brings that positive vibe in everything he does. And the music he brings with the reggae style and that smooth lyrical flow, Oh, you know what to do. Y'all check out Tone G Music.
You're listening to Simply Straight Talk.
All right, everybody, we are at the final thoughts of the day's show. Listen, today we talked about love behind bars and prison pen pals. Basically, we're talking about dating someone who's incarcerated, someone who's in prison. Listen, I think love is a challenge no matter where you pursue it. So whether it's someone who is incarcerated, someone who's not incarcerated, you're still going to have challenges. But in each case, the requirements are still the same. You have to use caution. And one thing, you have to reflect on yourself as to why you are pursuing a relationship. You know, one of the most common things I hear from people say is, I keep meeting the same people and, I get the same results. And I always ask the person, well, where are you meeting people? People say, well, I meet people in clubs and I keep getting the same thing. It's the same type women, the same type men. If you keep going back to the same place and in the same environment, you're going to keep meeting the same type people. I'm not saying that everyone that's incarcerated is a bad person, but you have to remember that they are under some circumstances that's really stressful for them. They are looking for a means of survival. You have some people that's incarcerated that really want to meet somebody and start their life over. You got somebody out there that's, not incarcerated that wants to give somebody who's incarcerated a chance. But the thing about it is you have to be open and honest, and you cannot live in a fantasy world regarding how you dream things are going to be. You need to keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and remain conscious to what's going on and what's being said. There are people who have dated and met someone who's been incarcerated and they have had great relationships. On the other hand, there are people who have met people who were incarcerated and things didn't quite work out for whatever reason. A lot of people struggle with the fact that when this person gets out, it's not as easy for them to get a job. It's not as easy for them to kind of incorporate themselves back into society because for either 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, they've had to adapt to a lifestyle. And some of them want to cut loose. Some of them get so used to solitude that that's what they know, solitude. Some of them become so private that they don't know how to express themselves once they're open and face to face and in the public. So you have to keep all these things in mind. It's not that sometimes they're a bad person, that they have just become accustomed to a lifestyle that doesn't really suit a relationship. So you have to be mindful about these things that, when you're pursuing this type of relationship, you need to understand both sides. You have to be open and honest about what you feel, what you think, what you like, what you need, what you're looking for, because going under the false assumptions that everyone who's incarcerated is a, transformed person, you're going to find yourself really disappointed. And it's the same thing for the people incarcerated. If you think everybody that's, pen pals with you is just as the same, is just being open and honest and only talking to you, you're going to find out that it goes both ways. You can be scammed on either side. You can be used on either side. But if you are pursuing a love, make sure that you are keeping your eyes open and you're being wise. And like I said, you're remaining conscious to what's going on and what's being said. And I mentioned P.O. boxes earlier on. I want to throw that in before I get off of here. I do recommend that if you are dating someone or attempting to pursue someone who's in prison, that you use a P.O. address. Because if it doesn't work out or things don't go right, you don't want to give this person your physical address. You really want to use a P.O. address. Use a P.O. box to get the mail. You know what I'm saying? And they even have online P.O. boxes now where it go to a company, they're opening, they're scanning, it comes to your email. You need to protect yourself until you are absolutely positive that this is the direction that you want to go. Like I said, borders. You need to be mindful of this type of stuff, especially considering what this person may have been incarcerated with, who they may have been associated with. So you need to use these things because you don't want to find out that your address has been put as their permanent address and they're coming to you and you're like, oh, no. So be mindful of things like that. Hey, thank you for joining us and checking out the show. This is your host, Reggie Maddox, and don't forget to join us next week for another show.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Straight Talk Show with Reggie Maddox. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our podcast to your friends and colleagues. And please leave us a positive review on iTunes. Be sure to check out our archive section on iTunes, Spotify, Libsyn, and YouTube. Join us next time for another edition of the Simply Straight Talk Show.